Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, bienvenidos a LightSpeed Spanish. Today I'm going to share with you a concept about the past tense and about the use of the verb soler with the past tense. That once you understand it, you'll be able to use it perfectly and you won't get it wrong in the future. Pues a por ello, hablamos de todo en la segunda parte. Ojalá tuviera yo un español más decente. So loads of times, and in the comments, by the way, I really like the comments and the questions that you're giving based on these little grammar tips that I'm offering. People have been asking about the verb soler in the past. Now, I don't know if you know the verb soler. Soler is to have the custom of doing something. That's probably the best translation that you can have. It's to do something repeatedly. Okay? So, for example, I can say, yo suelo hacer ejercicio 2 veces a la semana. Okay? So I usually do exercise 2 times a week. Okay, so I usually, or I have the custom of doing exercise 2 times a week. Okay, so suelo, not the floor. That's a different kind of suelo. This is suelo, as in I have the custom. So what happens when we take it into the past? Well, when we go into the past, we use it in its imperfect form, which is solía. And what we're going to look at today is the difference between these 2 sentences. Yo solía hablar con mi abuelo los fines de semana. And yo hablaba con mi abuelo los fines de semana. And the question is, what's the difference between those 2 sentences? In English, the first one with solía is, I used to talk with my grandfather at the weekend. And the other one, which is just hablaba, I used to talk with my grandfather at the weekend. But wait a minute, how can that be? Well, first thing to understand is when you have an aba or an ia, the imperfect, you can translate it as used to. Aba and ia is used to, and it's also wasing and wereing. So what is the difference then between solía hablar and hablaba? Well, the difference is this. When you say solía hablar, what you're doing is you are specifying that this was something that you used to do a lot of and you had the custom of doing it during a period of time. Yo solía hablar con mi abuelo los fines de semana. I had the custom, I had the habit, I did that as a matter of course. That's what you're saying with solía. However, you can say exactly the same thing with hablaba. Cuando yo era niño, hablaba con mi abuelo todos los fines de semana. So when I was a child, I used to talk with my grandfather every weekend. It's your choice whether you use solía or whether you just go for the verb and say hablaba. Solía hablar, hablaba. There's no difference. So why on earth does it exist? Well, it exists because sometimes you want to give the feel that this was a very repetitive thing that you used to do and you had the habit of doing. It's almost like that I had the habit of doing this. But you can only use it when you're doing that kind of sentence, when you were communicating that kind of, I used to have the habit of doing this. Yo solía ir al gimnasio, pero ahora no tengo ganas. I used to go, I had the habit of going, I had the custom of going to the gym, but now I can't be bothered. Personally, I like to use solía in those situations, but it isn't something that you would overuse. It's kind of like a salt and pepper type of verb. It sounds lovely. I like it. I love how it sounds. When you say, solía estudiar español cada mañana. I used to have the custom of studying Spanish every morning. But when can you not use solía? Well, you can't use it when you want to say a wasing or wereing sentence. For example, if I was going to say, I was talking to my grandfather the other day, okay? You would say, Yo hablaba con mi abuelo el otro día y él, blah, blah, blah. What you can't do in that sentence is say, el otro día solía hablar con mi abuelo. Does not make sense. The other day I had the custom of speaking to my grandfather. No, it doesn't work. So it only works when you're in the sentence with a used to. But remember, you don't need to use solía. You can just use the verb, and the verb does exactly the same job. Solía just sounds a little bit more kind of ongoing, and you don't need to use solía, but it's nice to. En mi conversación, yo suelo usar soler, porque a mí me gusta. So there you are. Now it's your job to start sliding that into your Spanish conversation when you're chatting about what you used to do. So now I'm going to leave you with a sentence in English, and I'd like you to translate it and put it in the comments. Put the answer in Spanish. And the sentence is this. When I was young, I used to eat a lot of bananas. You've got two options, and one of them includes soler. Pues muchas gracias, chicos, y nos vemos la próxima vez. Hasta luego.